Whoa. Okay. So we're doing it. Like it's actually happening. We're doing it and not like it's just an idea. We're doing it. Good to see everyone through the Zoom. As you can see, I am at my setup. I have a rather nice curtain behind me. The lighting makes my hair look absolute jet black, which is nice seeing that. But still, it is so good to be here. So good to see you guys. We're going to try this whole big experiment. We're going to see how it goes. But hey, I think it's going to be a good time. Hoping you'll get something out of it. That was Into the Wild by Dan Brems, one of my favorite songs recently come out. Very much a good song to add to your carpool playlist if you have one of those. But still, yes, let's kind of start this off with New Beginnings. What a great title, right? And so I want to start off like everyone should start off with a goal. You'll see how relevant that is in a moment, but the goal for this program, starting off at the very beginning, to provide confident and empathetic leaders the tools to help others. I'll tell you right now, a lot of thought went into that because there's so many ways to phrase it, there's so many ways to say it, but ultimately that's what this is here for. This is hoping and working towards having you guys not only become more confident and empathetic, but giving you the tools to use that to help others. How much that plays out, we'll find out, but I'm hoping you're here along for the ride because I'm sure ready to take this show on the road, if you will. When it comes to this program, 3 main goals, 3 themes, and you'll see these little STW tags kind of pop up here and there as we go through our little adventure. First, it starts with the self, right? It starts with you. It starts with giving you the tools that you need to feel better about yourself. I like to quote the famous flight attendant saying, please put your own mask on before helping others. The reason they tell you to do that is because if you don't put your mask on and the aircraft is falling apart and there's no air pressure, you will die before you can help someone else. And so being able to give you guys the tools to feel good about yourself and how to manage the things that you're facing, ultimately that will set you up to be in a position to help the program that you're voluntarily contributing to, and help the team around you that you're working with and you're encountering on a day-to-day basis. But really, a lot of those skills that we talk about for a team, the leadership you need for a team, or the making sure your teammates are doing okay, those skills translate to the world around you. Those skills are things that you can take into the world that you can share with others. And ultimately, I mean, it's cliche, but ultimately make the world a better place, right? That's a goal that I hope you either have or you will have by the time I'm done with you. But really, the thought of using skills not only better yourself, but to help those around you, that's a noble goal, I feel. And so that's something that we're going to be pursuing as a group of motley middle and high schoolers. Talking about expectations. Let's talk about expectations just a little bit. This is quoting what I took off of the application form that you guys all applied through. Turns out only the first one is truly relevant. When it comes to being someone who cares about others, when it comes to someone who can lead a group, if you yourself don't pursue the highest forms and levels of moral character, of wanting what is right, of justice and ability to make peace and being mild-mannered, if you don't have that yourself, then does anything really matter? What you say, what you do? It's the idea that we as a people should be constantly pursuing the highest form of being kind to others, the highest form of caring about others. That's really, really important. And so when it comes to your day-to-day interactions, when it comes to your service to stuff, when it comes to walking around your neighborhood, if ultimately I want to hold you guys to that highest standard possible. And so that's, of the 3 points, that one's the most important. But still, when it comes to other expectations, obviously, if you're in Science Olympiad, if you're a student right now, you're competing, we want you to perform at the highest level possible. That's not only for your own sake to try and be good at Science Olympiad, right? To try and excel and grow and build your resume or whatever. But also, I mean, when people have this this level of like, they are they're performing at a high level, they are at a place where they are working hard, those people ultimately earn the respect of others. And it's in that place where you're able to make a difference in when the words that you say and the things that you do will have impact. And that's what we want. And so we will have we will ask, or I will ask, that you guys continue to pursue Science Olympiad. Make that your priority if you're a student, if you're competing. And that's something I hope that you'll continue to do as we kind of progress through this. Returning students, that means captains and coaches. I would love to have you guys be dedicated to Sierra Vista. Captains are very much so, as I mean, it's kind of part of the competing process. But coaches as well. I know from experience that high school gets really busy, but the notion that you can take some time of your week to set aside and to work with these students, that's something very much worth pursuing. And so I want to make sure that the people who are here to learn about what it's like to run a Science Olympiad team and the semantics behind it and the best ways to go about it are people who are going to be able to invest into that team and not just take that knowledge and then go sit on the couch for the afternoon and the evening. It's that ability to reinvest that we start to see that multiplication, that growth of the values that we're going to try and talk about in this. And so I'm hoping that'll be something that resonates. And then the last point, I mean, this is kind of special, right? Like, you had to do the whole big application. You had to do the whole like interview thing with like the mysterious interviewer person, which is really funny. And you had to do all of that. And then you had to do this like peer review thing. And I had a blast reading those. This kind of is a special deal. I mean, you're like, I'm a part of this group of students. We're learning about leadership. Like, yeah, good for you. The second it gets to your head, it loses all value. The second that you take that pride and assert it over someone else, it's gone. It's worthless. Everything that this program is for is completely counteracting, completely contradicting, completely against the idea of pride and of being proud of it and asserting it over others and showing off how great you are. And so don't let it get to your head. It seems counterintuitive, but this is something cool, I would like to think. But when you make it something cool and when you show it off to others and when you brag about it, it just doesn't count. And so keep that in mind. And that's something I'm going to continue to rehash. It's a point I'll continue to bring up as we kind of go through this journey, because it's something that we all need to work on, myself included. So it's just a point to kind of bring with you as we go about this. Let's do some real quick class expectations. The kind of, call it a guiding principle, call it a main idea, is to maximize what you can get out of this. And so I've said it before and I'll say it again. I am a first-year college student. I spent my first weekend of college yelling at parents on how to grade a bunch of science tests that a group of kids took for fun. I am not a guru. I am not a manager. My knowledge is, I will even admit, is limited when it comes to this stuff. And so I cannot guarantee that everything I say will be relevant or will stick or will make a difference. But the idea, the notion that you want to get out of it as much as you possibly can, that's something worth pursuing. And so what that looks like in a kind of class-based situation. I mean, I know you guys take extra classes. I know you guys go to school. I would ask that you treat this to the best of your ability, to the place where your schedule allows. Treat it like a class. not that science class that you're always like not paying attention in and doing other stuff in, because I know you guys do that. But an actual like, hey, I'm kind of interested and I want to learn about this, that kind of class. Because when you do that, like you get more out of it. I can talk about from personal experience already in the first couple weeks of college, seeing students around me who show up to lecture, who show up to discussion and take notes and ask questions, compared to the students who go to bed at 1 in the morning, wake up at noon, and then go to the frat parties at 7, starting at 7, ends at 1. Yeah. You can very much tell which student is which. You can see how they're doing. And if that's a choice that you want to make, you know what? I can't control that. But the students who are wanting to get something out of something, they will get it. And so I'm hoping that's something that you'll be able to do. Treat it like a class. Try to show up on time best you can. I know we have busy schedules. Distraction free, like whatever that means to you. I've got my phone on Do Not Disturb right now. I've got my notifications just paused for the hour, more give or take, that I'll be with you guys. Just trying to make it kind of an environment where you can actually focus on what we're talking about. And I'm hoping that the environment will be conducive to that. So there will be a lot of asking questions, calling people out, going back and forth, some arguments here and there, just kind of based on what I've planned out so far. And that will be hopefully engaging and will keep you kind of involved with stuff. That's what we're kind of hoping for. And so being able to be distraction free, that'll just only allow that to be even better. Active participation means you're willing to participate. There will be times where I ask for volunteers. There'll be times I call people out just to get their opinion, to kind of force people into participating. There will be times where I'll ask rhetorical questions and kind of answer it myself. It all kind of depends on the vibe of the lesson so far. But in times that I do need participation, I will ask for it. And I would ask that if you're able to participate, you can, and that you do. In kind of line with that, it's answering honestly, not correctly, and similarly challenging ideas that you don't agree with. The notion that there is a correct answer to stuff, especially in a subjective field like leadership, like management, and things of that nature, it's there's no explicit correct answers. And so I'll ask for brainstorming, I'll ask for ideas, I'll ask for thoughts here and there. And for those of you who I've already talked to about this caliber of material, you understand how I work that, the kinds of questions I ask, the way I lead them to a certain point. But it's hopefully that you'll feel able and you'll feel comfortable to kind of truly express your thoughts and your feelings regarding what we're talking about. And we'll try to make that an environment where you're able to do so. Jumping back up, asking questions. There is a lot of material when it comes to this kind of subject matter that doesn't always fit well in a presentation by itself. But when we ask questions, when we jump off on tangents, go into hypotheticals, that can oftentimes open the door to more discussion and more developing of thoughts. And so if you have a question or you don't agree with something or you want a clarification, let's pause, let's focus on that, because hopefully that'll open up even more things to talk about as we kind of get deeper and deeper into the concepts that we'll be talking about with this. Note-taking wise, so I can't force anything, but I will ask that you take notes. Doesn't need to be like super impressive. Doesn't need to be no Cornell notes, please. Nothing like that. But I would ask that you take some form of notes somehow. The reason is to, one, practice note-taking, because it's something you'll always need to be doing. But also, and more importantly, I would argue, the act of writing it down and then having something to look back on in a future setting. That is, I think, going to be one of the best tools to helping you kind of pull what you can out of this. Because as at the night of scrimmage, I had some conversations with some of you where we kind of got into discussions about certain things. And you'll notice that when it comes to those discussions, it's a lot of ideas. It's a lot of content. Sometimes it's rambly, sometimes it's not. But with the amount and the volume of information, oftentimes the information is stuff you haven't even heard before, thought about. It's not going to be something that you pull away from in a 45-minute or an hour-long session. And so to get that repetition, to review it again, to think about it again, to force yourself to think about it again, that will set the stage for down the line, months down the line, years down the line, it becoming second nature. It just depends on how kind of aggressive you are in that kind of line of thinking, how much you think about the decisions you make, how much you think about others. And so forcing yourself to do that through note taking and then reviewing those notes will really help with that. And so I would ask that you find this, some way to take notes if you don't have it already. And that would be really appreciated. I may ask, like, see your notes here and there, not to like spy on you, but to see kind of what you're picking away from when we talk about these kinds of issues, what you're taking away from it. And then that allows me to kind of tailor my stuff as well. The last bullet point, something you've probably never seen in a class before, use of calendar, alarms, and docs. So the way homework will be structured is going to be a lot different than things you've had in a traditional class. That'll often be like time specific or time relevant homework assignments. So it'll be asking you do something on a certain day or do something at a certain time. That'll mean you get your alarms out, your calendar out, to try and remind yourself to do it then, or think about it then, or look for something then. Again, kind of abstract right now. We haven't even jumped into it yet, but when that time comes, you'll see it. So hopefully you have some sort of way of keeping track of your stuff. And then regarding docs, I'm also going to ask that you have one Google Doc for all the written assignments that we do. It's not going to be a lot for the record, but one ongoing document that will allow you to save all of the questions and answers that you come up with. I will talk more about the purpose of that document as we get towards the end of this kind of experience. But for the time being, just trust me that having a document with all the questions and answers in it will be a good idea when this is all said and done. What you should expect out of me, out of this classroom, you can see it. I'll talk through some of the points. Obviously, feel respected and valued by me, by your peers. That's kind of a given. And I trust that you guys are already like that. But it's one of those things that you always still want to kind of say and make explicit. An undiluted environment. Okay. So I'm going to ask for participation on this one, but I'm going to call it out randomly. It's not random, I promise. Lydia. Hi, Lydia.
Hello.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I don't buy it. How are you actually doing?
I don't know. Can you hear Leanna in the background?
I can see and hear, yes. But no, seriously, how's today? Was today, like, I know Mr. Vol wasn't there today. Was that kind of different for stuff?
In a way, not really. We kind of just reviewed our tests.
Mm-hmm. So, okay. I said it was random. Guess what? It's not random. I called you out for a reason. Can I ask, can you guess what the unique factor about you is in this group?
I'm in 7th grade.
Yeah. That's kind of interesting, right? Because when it comes to, like, we talk about, like, oh, leadership and management, that's in a class or in a science Olympiad context, that kind of gravitates towards what? The captains, the coaches. But here we have 8th and even a 7th grader kind of here along for the ride. Lydia, I'll ask you, this last time I put you on the spot for today, but can you, any ideas as to why that is? Why is it that you're here versus it just being captains and coaches?
Because I stood out in my applications and was able to to show that I have potential.
I like that last word. I like the last word. Let's kind of develop that a little bit further. Potential, right? There, my math teacher in high school said that students will rise to the level that you teach them, and that was kind of a thing that made me think about it, right? Because in math, her according to the curriculum, she was required to teach us a very baseline level of knowledge, and yet she went like 2 or 3 times that. We had quizzes every Monday. We had multiple tests like a month. It was chaos. It was pandemonium. There was a lot of tears, and a lot of my students, a lot of my classmates, including myself. But when it was all said and done, we looked back on all the stuff that we had learned, and it was suddenly like, whoa, that's pretty cool. And so when it comes to something like, I don't know, this kind of semi-structured leadership course, also Science Olympiad training thing, there is no reason why we shouldn't have 7th and 8th graders in this. And that's kind of twofold. Like, first of all, it's like Lydia said, potential, right? Because when someone comes into this and they get the same training as a current leader would have, you have this. You're immediately preparing the next generation, the next set, the next group of leaders, and that sets the stage for success in the long run. Mr. Yuval always talks about a cycle, a program lasting year after year, and so training people before they need the training just allows them to respond when they're called upon to be in that position. But also secondarily, I think, Lydia's never going to have to talk to the team this year, never do like one of those big team speeches. Technically, I might make her do it, but technically never needs to talk to any parents or lead any strands or anything like that. And yet, if she has the skill set to do that, does she not also have the tools and the knowledge and the know-how to help the people who are doing that? Like, what if we have a coach trying to get order in a strand like we did the other day, and you have someone who is in that strand who's able to bring people to order because they understand what the coach is looking for, what the coach is trying to do, then suddenly you have this network of people working together to solve a problem, and not just a single figurehead on top of the food chain trying to call the shots from up top. Having an interconnected network of people who are all working together and who are all like helping each other, that's organizational success. And that's what Mr. Yuval aspires to have in Science Olympiad. And that's what we all want to kind of bring, not only to the team, but also to the people around us. And so, so for the first point is obviously training the next generation of leaders. Sure. The second point is helping our current situation, helping the current leaders do their job. And then also, like, come on, like, if someone's in 8th grade, like, you're telling me you're never going to have a group project, or you're never going to be in a position where you need to make a presentation in front of the class. Like, those are still issues we encounter every day. And so not only is it training the next generation, not only is it helping our current leaders, it's also just giving people the skills to do what they need to do. And so that's what I mean by undiluted. It's the idea of teaching in combination, teaching a quote unquote combo class, if you will. By doing that, we're giving everyone the tools they need to succeed, and not like simplifying it for one group and leaving complex for the other group. I think that helps everyone. We'll find out if that works, but I think based on my own experience with this kind of nature and the classes I've taken, the teachers I've had, I feel like this is the way to go. And so let's do it. Challenging ideas, you're comfortable challenging ideas, disagree with. That's a given. Meaningful assignments for homework. So I'm going to tell you right now, there are a couple homework assignments planned that, I don't know, maybe 4 of you, 5 of you will like want to stab me over. Like, horrible, like not fun assignments that you are going to think are just terrible. But they're not, objectively speaking, not terrible. And I'm giving them to you for a reason. So yes, there is homework in this program. There's homework in this class, but it's not this heavy workload of like grind out 3 essays for me in a month. There's going to be some short responses on Google Classroom. Those have multiple serve multiple purposes. First of all, it's just showing what you know about what you've learned. Second of all, it's giving you practice in responding to things quickly, because guess what? In college, my homework assignment is to write a 5-sentence summary of the class that I took, the lecture I just listened to. And so the ability to kind of synthesize information and synthesize your own opinions and thoughts kind of out of the blue, and then also keeping it concise and also getting as much information and experience and insight into it as possible. You need that in high school, you need that in college, you need that in the workforce. And so giving you the practice of doing that now, again, shouldn't take you more than 10 minutes. Very much simple, very doable, but it'll be a great thing for you to work on and look at as we kind of get through this. Other homework assignments will be, like I said, time sensitive. And so it'll be like a certain point of the day or a certain place. Do something, say something, look for something. Those would be the fun ones as well. And then there's a couple that are kind of really out there that I know people aren't going to be happy with, but I promise it's the right call. And some of you are going to love it and you're going to be like all over it. And I'm looking forward to talking about those. When it comes to a leadership class versus a biography, this is kind of an abstract point. But as I said before, like I'm a college student. I'm not an experienced instructor on this kind of material. And so while someone like that may look to research and kind of current trends and insight that comes from experienced leaders, like I try to do that. I promise I try to do that. And I try to read about it. I try to look at the research, but it's just so difficult, especially when you're not a professional. And so a lot of the things that I'll talk about do kind of come from personal experience, kind of come from personal, like things that I've seen, things that I've done, things I've noticed. The goal isn't to recite my life story for you, but rather to try to pick out the aspects of those events and circumstances and things to make them relevant and make them reasonable for you to kind of take away from, almost like expanding small ideas into bigger ideas. And so I'm hoping that'll be, I'm working towards making that actually something that I keep in mind when it comes to sharing personal life stories and sharing personal experiences, because there's a lot of those that are relevant to what we'll be talking about. But yes, the goal is for you to not like sit here and hear my life story out. And so with that, I hope you have something to take notes with. Do we need to pause for 30 seconds for everyone to get something to take notes with? It could be a notebook. It could be like 4 sticky notes, pen and paper. I'll wait for just a second. And with that, we jump into the goal. Goal: to recognize the importance of establishing well-defined goals. Are you noticing a trend? When it comes to kind of the first step in just about anything, it's establishing your goals. And what I love is that we've already seen that being implemented in the Science Olympiad program this year, even before I've talked about it and taught it. And so I'm hoping to give some tools regarding goals, making goals, establishing goals, identifying goals, how to fix goals, how to solve goals, that you'll be able to kind of use not only in Science Olympiad, but also in your group project. You'll be able to use in your whatever kind of arises. And so I wanted to see how many times I could fit the word goal on a page. I got quite a few in this one. Turns out there's a book called The Goal, Process and Ongoing Improvement. I actually read this book. I thought it was going to be a textbook about a field of science called industrial engineering. Turns out it's like a fiction book that kind of has bits of technical know-how in it, bits of engineering in it. All of that is like really, I found it was really interesting. It's actually one of my highly rated books to recommend to people if you have interests in kind of seeing how things work, like think like factories and stuff. But there are some key excerpts from this book that I will be mentioning in different parts of this kind of series. The first of which is actually like the importance of a goal. And so when it comes to like the first step, it's the first step, right? But so often when it comes to like establishing goals, we see people get so general or they miss the point. That is actually kind of one of the main talking points, one of the main discussion points in this book. Is there's a character who is trying to solve a problem in his workplace, but he continues to miss the point as to what he's actually trying to do, and instead tries to fix all the other problems not related to the issue at hand. And so when it comes to the first step, it's find the specific goal, hone in on the important thing that you're trying to work on, and get rid of everything else, everything excess. And then similarly, split the goals from the means of achieving it. The means of achieving it is how you get there. The means of achieving it is what you do to achieve the goal. You don't want that to be a part of the goal. Your goal is a simple target. How you get there, we'll get to in a second slide. Ultimately, you shouldn't have to think about this. It should just be like a go-to. You skip over the step, and you go on with your next thing of preparing or assembling a team or identifying strengths and weaknesses, whatever that may be. But no matter what issue you're facing, you can always come back to reestablishing, identifying the goal that you're trying to achieve, that you're trying to fix. And so that's why I find it so important to start with this. There are 4 or 5 concepts that I was debating what to start with. I find all of them important, but this one ultimately I felt like was the one to go to. And so let's just talk about an example. What is the goal of a computer company? Say Apple. You can say Microsoft, Asus, Toshiba, Dell. The goal of a computer company, right? If you ask their PR department, they would give you something like that, or quality products to meet consumer needs. But I would argue, and Mr. Goldratt would argue, that's not the goal of a computer company. Let me ask, Gordon.
Hello.
First of all, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, actually.
Really? Okay. Emphasize that a little bit more. You say you're good. That's a good thing. So talk about it.
Just been quite productive today so far. So.
You know, I was hoping you'd be a bit more productive in those lineups, because we have some people who are not happy about when those are coming out. But no, I appreciate your help with all that. Let me ask you, the goal of a computer company. What's kind of going through your mind when I ask that?
To be honest, the first thing that comes to mind is to make money. Yeah. Yeah. The goal of any company is to make money, right? Okay, sure, getting the whole debate about nonprofits, getting whatever, that's not the point. The point is, what is the goal of a computer company? It's to make money. The goal of a factory is to make money. The goal of Amazon is to make money. That's the goal. And sorry for spoiling the book that I just talked about, but that's one of the primary conclusions that the main character takes away. Now, how he solves it, you have to read to find out. But that is the goal of a company, is to make money. And so when we get lost in the reeds of, we're trying to fix efficiency, we're trying to maintain an image, PR department, public relations. It's kind of that department that like faces the external, faces the stakeholders, the shareholders, and faces the people of the country, and they talk about their issues. When it comes to like, we need to improve our on-time delivery, we need to raise profits and cut expenses. Sure, that's fine and dandy, but the goal is to make money. And if what you're doing isn't advancing towards that goal of making money, you're not solving your goal. You're not achieving anything. You're just moving numbers around to make it look good. And so that is just such a basic example of something that we get so lost about, is like, what's the goal of this and that? It's focus on the details, focus on the very specific thing that you need to work on. With a company, it's money. Now, when I've talked about in that previous slide, kind of means metrics. What does that actually look like? So means, how you get there, what you do to get there, right? Metrics, how you measure it. How do you measure your success? And then secondary goals, it's kind of in the name. It's things that you're keeping in mind as you're working towards your primary goal. So, computer factory example. How do you make money? You sell computers. That's the means. That's how you do it. Now, in terms of way of measuring how successful you are achieving your goals, obviously like income, revenue, profit, expenses, that all works. Computers sold, an easy way to measure it, right? And so that's just a plain and simple example of a way of measuring success in a company. Sure, you can talk about other costs of producing one computer. If you cut the cost, if you lower the cost of producing one computer, you make more money per computer. If you have sell multiple computers, you make more money overall, and so you work towards your goal. But that serves as like a way of achieving your goal of making more money. In a similar way, customer satisfaction. There is no law of science that says when there's a satisfied customer, that leads to more income. But if we follow sociology trends, if someone's happier, they associate more positively with the brand. When they're at the next decision point as to whether to purchase one brand or another, they're more likely to lean towards a brand they enjoy more, and therefore they more likely to purchase a computer from that brand, which means that brand makes more money. And so in a roundabout way, customer satisfaction increases profits. Again, that's not explicit. That's kind of works through a line of reasoning. But if you measure customer satisfaction, I bet you'll be able to measure profits and how much money you make. Again, I'll keep saying it. Your primary goal isn't customer satisfaction unless you're some sort of philanthropy group or nonprofit or whatever. If your goal is to make money, do what it takes to make money. If that means making the consumer angry, maybe you have to do it. Apple's done that recently with for a lot of reasons actually, with the iPhone. They talk about cutting out the charging block for the new iPhones. I think it was, it's either 11 or 12 when they started cutting out the charging block for the iPhones and instead just giving you the cable. The claim for that is to reduce ecological impact. That's very true, very much true. It's cutting e-waste, and people tend to have chargers already. And so that is true. But, I mean, really, they're a company. Their goal is to make money. And so by taking the charging block out, they're saving a lot of money. And so that is just a very simple example of achieving their primary goal. Secondary goals for a company: brand image, ecological impact. All the companies claim to do it, but you bet right now that if a company did not think that it could make money off of being environmentally friendly, they would not, right? We see a lot of companies today talk about how they are reinvesting into ecological protections, or they use all recycled materials. Do you think that if it was cheaper to use the harmful wastes, that they would do it, assuming no regulation? Absolutely. And that just, again, goes to show every company will always pursue that primary goal. Okay, that's boring because you guys don't care about computer companies. That's not relevant to you at all. So let's bring it back to Science Olympiad. Tryout introduction meeting. Guess what? This actually happened multiple times over the years, and every year it's the same situation, and every year it's the same issues that arise and things that kind of come up and crop up. And so we can bring it into a discussion like this regarding leadership and get some stuff out of it. So you need to introduce Science Olympiad to new students and parents. They have only heard about how great Sierra Vista is at Science Olympiad and all the wonderful national champions we have, and they don't know anything about Science Olympiad. Your job is to explain it to them and introduce them to that material. Primary goal, take a guess, it's introduce the material, communicate the information clearly, right? Now you can get into the weeds with like, what are we allowed to say clearly when we talk about a goal? Like, I would argue yes, but plain and simple, the primary goal, communicate the information clearly. No matter what you do at this meeting, if you communicate the information clearly, consider the meeting a success. Plain and simple, right? Everyone can agree with that? Okay. Possible secondary goals. What else could we kind of keep in mind as we're doing this? Remember, the one thing we need to do is communicate it clearly. But if we do these other things, it may help us in the long term. An example, be professional and friendly. If we show up to our meeting 20 minutes late, if we don't have our slides ready, if we're rambling off topic and cracking jokes, technically speaking, we can still convey the information clearly in a certain way, but doing so in this manner makes Sierra Vista look bad. It makes our program look like we don't know what we're doing. And so even if we achieve that goal of communicating clearly, we can still fail in bringing people into Science Olympiad. If you're hosting a meeting, learning and growing is always a secondary goal. I mean, again, I said at the beginning, the desire for you to improve and to get better, that's something you can do everywhere. And so if you're hosting a meeting, consider making one of the secondary goals ways for you to improve. What can you do to get better as you're presenting this information? Are you going to take steps to communicate information not only clearly, but with a fun and energetic tone? Are you going to get better at answering questions? Are you going to get better at managing time or communicating in multiple ways or multitasking? What are ways that you can improve as you're busy clearly communicating the information to new students and parents? I put the exclamation point. I'll say it again. You can always make personal growth a secondary goal. No matter what you're trying to achieve, you can always make wanting to better yourself a goal in whatever you're doing. And so consider doing that. It's super easy. You just need to think about how you can get better and then do it. And I really appreciate when we can see people doing that in different contexts. When we go to the means and metrics for clearly communicating information, a possible means of communication is keeping people happy, right? If students and parents are enjoying their time, they're more likely to listen and be receptive of new ideas. If they are annoyed that their needs aren't being met, or they've been waiting for 40 minutes, or whatever the case, then they're not going to be as receptive to this information that you're presenting, which hinders your primary goal. And so one way of making sure you can communicate clearly is keeping the people you're communicating to happy. Similarly, if you have people helping you out, volunteers, 8th graders, captains, coaches, making sure that they're accounted for, that they're in a good mood, that they're productive, right? If the volunteers are happy, then they're going to communicate the information in a happy manner. They're going to be positive, and maybe that'll help make sure things are nice and clear for everyone else as well. Minimizing time. Ooh, okay. I could talk a lot about when it comes to time, minimizing, maximizing. That gets into a field of science I alluded to before called industrial engineering or systems engineering. It's managing resources and putting them where they're best suited. It's a whole branch of engineering. You see it a lot in factories. You see it a lot in management, kind of like upper level management of a lot of people. You'll see it in healthcare. It's a really cool field. And so when we talk about minimizing time spent in a meeting, if we set up our meeting such that, as an example, we have people ask questions first and then present information second, versus presenting information first and asking questions second. I'll ask, just to volunteer, raise your hand with your hand on Zoom. Which one will minimize the time that students and parents spend in the meeting? Presenting information first and asking questions second, or asking questions first and then presenting information second? Go for Tria.
Present the info first, ask the question second, so that anything that would have been answered by the information given is not, it doesn't have to be asked, basically.
Absolutely. 100% agree. And I'll follow up with you on that too. What if, who has a younger sibling? What if Madeline's parents are there and they know all about Science Olympiad? Do you think that they need to stick around for a Q&A session? No, right? And they're good to go. They don't need to sit there and listen to some poor parent from like one of the elementary schools who's asking like, well, what is disease detectives? How does it work? Are you like going out into the wilderness and like collecting diseases? Like, no, you don't need to hear that, right? That's not relevant information to them. And so by just changing up the structure of the meeting, it's very simple. It's just moving one part to another. You're cutting down the time that people are spending, which guess what? Increases student and parent happiness, which allows you to communicate information more clearly. That's in this way, you're starting to see all these little factors and details that are all connecting together. And that's kind of the beauty of having a clearly well-defined goal. So when you have that, you're able to develop everything around it to make sure you can achieve that goal to the best of your ability. Let's go for another example, and I'll ask for more participation on this one. Sounds familiar? Hope so. We host a study session. Okay. So I'll ask for volunteers. I won't call anyone out. But start thinking about what do you think the primary goal of this study session is going to be? What are some possible secondary goals? What are some ways that we can achieve those goals? And what are some ways we can measure those goals? So I'll give everyone a couple seconds to think about that. Primary goal, secondary goals, how do we achieve it, and how do we measure it? Take a second to think about that. Can I get a hand for the primary goal of a study session? Go for it, Stanley.
Learn more information.
Yep. Simple, right? The goal isn't to go like have a party at Panera. The goal isn't to see how many of those lemonades we can drink. I heard that was going on, and there's like a chugging contest or whatever. That was, yeah. And the people like downing caffeine as well. Anyway, that's not the goal. Primary goal, study. Simple, right? When we say that though, that's clearly not the only reason we do it, because if we wanted to just maximize studying, we would probably do it in a solitary confinement, like sensory deprivation room, just cushions everywhere. I'll have you know right now that I don't know if I can say this on recording, but there was a time where at a travel competition, Mr. Uvola locked a student in his hotel room to force him to study because he was running around like crazy, had so much energy. And so we had to make sure he was doing what he was supposed to be doing. And so he semi-voluntarily submitted himself to be locked in his room to work on his herpetology, I think it was at the time. And so that would probably be a more effective way of everyone studying. But we don't do that because we have secondary goals. Can I get a hand for a secondary goal? Maybe even two. I'll take multiple. Hannah, go for it.
Maybe to build like team relations and build a sense of community.
Absolutely. And I'll even add on to that. Yes, student camaraderie, student morale, 100%. Also, parent-team relations. I'm not sure how many of you were watching at that last study session, but you'll notice that I was talking to a lot of different parents at that event. I told them I would forget their names. I did forget their names, but the act of me going out and talking to them at least shows that we're trying to bring this community together and kind of bring everyone into this, because again, we could have all done this in isolation, but by doing it together, we're having those interpersonal relationships. We're bringing those connections together, and that makes perfect sense. It allows us to have fun. It allows us to do that. Now, let me ask: how do these secondary goals affect the primary goal? The go-to answer is to say people are happy to study more. Was that true at the Panera study session? Davina, I'm seeing the head shake. Can you talk about that?
I mean, like the more people end up like talking to each other and just like chit chatting, the less likely they are to actually like study and try to improve. So like those primary, secondary goal things kind of like conflict each other if they're taken to an extreme.
Absolutely. Yes. At that study session, we saw a lot of people studying and a lot of people not studying. And so we get to a situation where we start to have to start weighing pros and cons and balancing special interests, balancing student interests versus the program's interests versus the parents' interests. That's not a decision-making process you have to do right now. That's like week 4, week 5. But still, something to keep in mind, right? It's the notion that, yes, a secondary goal in certain cases can conflict with the primary goal. Now, in the long run, was this the right call to do? I would argue probably. I mean, a lot of people felt really good after that event. The dinner felt very productive. The bowling was a great time. I dominated all you guys, by the way. Just to be 100% clear, you notice I put that in the update email. Coach Josh did win bowling. But still, in the long-term effects of something as simple as a study session at a public place, that building of morale, I mean, that's big. And so even if we didn't work towards our primary goal, technically speaking, it would have been more efficient for us to stay in a classroom with the lights on and everyone working individually. That would be more efficient towards the primary goal. But by using our circumstances and by working with the kind of the complex issues that we're facing, we're able to kind of take that secondary goal just a little bit further, and work towards the primary goal, also work towards other things, and get to kind of a better place when we're all said and done. And so those are things that you're familiar with, but this is kind of the tricky one, right? So means of getting towards the goal. How does this Panera study session, what are the things that we can do at the study session to work towards having everyone study efficiently, not just studying, but what are things we can do given these circumstances to help people study efficiently? And then also, how can we measure efficient studying, team morale, things of that nature? Yeah, Shreya, give me something.
I had 4 means. Like what we normally do is we give them tests or expectations to complete at the session. That helps them stay on track and have like an end goal for what they're trying to study, and that expectation that they have to be held accountable for it will help them stay on track and study.
Absolutely. Yep. Setting clear, defined goals for them, making them come up with something to hold them accountable. That's why we have those checkout forms, right? There's very much a reason why we're doing that. And I think by doing that, we're able to see the effects of having this kind of more driven session towards a certain point. What's another way we could figure out how successful we are at studying or at improving morale?
For morale, perhaps we can like ask a sample group of students how they felt about that study session, what they think they got out of it.
You said a sample group because you're a Science Olympiad student. I could tell.
Oh.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, that's what I put here: student parent feedback. Just asking people what they thought. Turns out the feedback for that event was really good. Students, by and large, felt that it was productive. Parents were very happy with the results of that, and people are like, "Oh, I want to do this again." It seemed like it was conducive to good studying. Let me ask, what's another way we could kind of figure out how good we are towards working towards this goal? But I'll ask Josephine. I'll ask Josephine for a reason. Josephine, why do you think I'm asking you?
Because I have to also mentor Strand 4, specifically CJAP. So I want to see how productive they can be, especially because also during the Panera session, I had them do a CJAP test. So in terms of measuring it, we could see I had them grade each other's and then input it into the fall road. So that was a way for me to measure how productive they were and if they did better because of those scores or not.
Yeah. I mean, guess what? we can kind of trust you guys now a little bit, just a little bit, right? Having just judgment. Like, what do you think happened? What are your thoughts on it? Forget asking people. Just what do you think? Was the session productive in your mind? As coaches, we thought it was. We thought it was good for a multitude of reasons. We thought we had good growth in student performance. We thought we had good growth in morale. And so, using our own professional judgment, that's very much a valid way of going about things. Now, do you want to go to like a Fortune 500 company and go to their board meeting and say, I have a goal for how I'm going to change your company, and the way of figuring out whether I get there or not, just trust me on it? Probably not. But when it comes to something like Science Olympiad, something like this situation, using your own personal judgment is very much a valid way of seeing how well you achieved a goal. Now, obviously, you want to be fair in your assessment. You don't want to be biased, but it's something we can absolutely use. And so I wouldn't shy away from that situation. Okay, Division A. Oof, this is something I've already been asked about this year too. Let's kind of just do a quick run through. Can someone raise their hand on Zoom and give me a primary goal for why we do Division A? Yeah, Davina.
To get like the fifth and sixth graders interested in doing Science Olympiad.
Yep, plain and simple. With the goal is to get these students on board, right? The goal is to get them trained up, ready to go. It's kind of selfish for our own purposes, right? It's for our own desires because we want to use them in seasons to come, and so that we can very blatantly say that's our primary goal. How about a secondary goal? And I'm going to say from someone who hasn't participated yet. Ooh, that's annoying, isn't it? Yeah, someone who hasn't participated yet. What's a secondary goal for running Division A? Yeah, Liana.
Like not only to get people interested, but also to get them to like prepare to be more prepared for Division B Scioli and like know how everything works better.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yep. What's another one? Secondary goals. Let's keep going. There's plenty. Yeah, Madeline.
To get to introduce parents into this, because when parents are involved in Division A, as they need to be constantly, they're more prepared for the support that we need in Division B.
Absolutely. Our primary goal was to get the students prepared and trained up, right? But parents are very much an important part of this whole system. And so by introducing it early, we're able to work with parents earlier and get them on board earlier. There's one secondary goal I'm looking for, but it's more philanthropic. It's more kind of like warm fuzzies feeling. I'm curious if Ben's going to grab it. It's kind of out there, but Josephine, you think you have it?
Hopefully, is it to build a good image for our SVMS Scioli program, showing.
Oh, that's selfish. That's selfish. That's not nice. That's like, oh yeah, we look so good. But you're on the right track. You're on the right track, actually. Believe it or not, you're on the right track. Stanley, you think you have it?
It's like increase like people's interest in like science in general, and like get the entire world into like sciencey concepts and everything.
Aw, so caring about the world. Oh, it's so proud. Yeah, right. Get kids involved in science. Get kids interested. Build community service and helping others. All that kind of stuff. Very much a possible goal. Now, we won't shy away from the fact that's our primary goal. Our primary goal is to get people ready for our program, to make them better. But something else to keep in mind is just, hey, help get kids interested in science and help the world and bring positivity and all that warm, fuzzy stuff. Measurement. Gordon, I'm going to put you on the spot for this one. Measurements. How can we measure how successful we are at achieving our primary goal? Recall, our primary goal is preparing students to be successful in our program as they grow up. What's a way we can measure that?
Well, seeing how well they're able to perform once they're able to go into like some Division B and like against other schools, and how much more well prepared they are than newer people.
Absolutely. Tracking outcomes. That's a common one. You'll see that in all kinds of organizations, especially in education. Tracking where people end up, how they end up working, where they end up working, what do they do. There are whole departments at UCLA here that are dedicated to like tracking where people end up, because that's an indicator for how well you're working, right? If we are training all these Div A students, and then our next year we've got a bunch of seventh graders who have never touched Science Olympiad before, then maybe our Division A is kind of a waste, right? But if we have students who are coming in and you see them on our teams right now who know what they're doing and they're established and then they're ready to go, then suddenly maybe we should consider continuing this Division A cycle. That's a perfect measurement. That's a fantastic way to measure that, and I think it's something that we as a coaching staff we do try to keep in mind. Let's go to another quick practice, just real fast. I put Sierra Vista, but really it should just be Tim. Tim maintains communication with schools across the country. That's a statement. That's a circumstance. Primary goal. What's the primary goal of that? And there are multiple possible answers depending on how you look at Tim. I'll let someone shout it out. Actually, no. Go for Pragna.
To help benefit like Sierra Vista, and getting like more tests for like us to improve.
Do you think Tim is just doing this for Sierra Vista? Oh,
He could be.
he could be. You know what? It's up for debate. I say that he is. He'd probably say that he just likes having friends all over the country, and oh, my friend from Pennsylvania is blah, 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 my friend from New York. Blah, blah, blah. He's, you know how he is with that. We love him for it. But I mean, from a professional standpoint, sure, the primary goal of maintaining relationships with other teams is for our own personal interests, right? Getting those tests, getting those connections, getting those competitions. That's from a professional standpoint, absolutely our primary goal. Secondary goals of maintaining team communication, I kind of already alluded to them, but what's a possible secondary goal of wanting to have this kind of networking going?
For Tim or for SV Scioli?
Either.
Or both. Whatever, like if Tim has a network of science nerds from across the country and he knows he's going into science, he has people he's known, whatever field he ends up into, he will probably ideally have some people that he can, like, he already knows and can work with, and that's helpful in like helping him build up as like career.
Absolutely. Personal interest for Tim, right? His networking as he grows up. I think he's dorming with one of his friends right now. I met one of his friends the other day as I was walking down through the main walkway here. One said like, "Hey, are you like so-and-so? Like, I'm Tim's friend." I did not feel comfortable with that, but it was nice to see him. Yeah, professional networking, absolutely. What's real quick? What's a secondary goal for Sierra Vista as an institution? What's a possible reason we would want to have kind of team relationships with other teams? And I'll hint that it's something that a lot of companies try to do as well. Our computer company did it at the very beginning. Yeah, Leanna.
To like get an advantage and get information.
Very true. Very true. What's another one that's relevant to like the computer company we talked about as well? Stanley?
Like money.
Oh, well, money. I mean, if you're getting money from these teams, I think you're supposed to declare that, because we need some new some good merch as well. Ferris, yeah, go for it.
Maybe to maintain a better public image, so that the
Absolutely.
other schools can see us in a very good light.
Yep. Brand image. It's big these days. There's whole people whose whole jobs is dedicated to maintaining brand image, and so if we're doing that with our team, that's great. Okay, steps to achieving the primary goal. Remember, the primary goal is to help Sierra Vista through fostering relationships with other teams. That's getting resources, whatever that looks like. What are some ways we can do that? What are some things that we can do specifically? Don't just assume. Like, what are some things we can actually specifically do? Yeah, Josephine.
During competitions, we can talk to people from other schools, or we can go on like Scioli.org Discord and chat on there.
Yep. Perfect. You nailed it right on the head. Just actually doing it. That's something we can kind of use to get towards our primary goal. And so I'll ask this: what's the goal of Sierra Vista Science Olympiad? You'll recall that I asked this on the application and got some varying answers of varying qualities. Let's just jump through a couple quick ones. To win nationals, no, sorry. It's the secondary goal, absolutely, not the primary goal. Have fun, learn about science. That's kind of that whole, goes with like community, like warm fuzzies. No, primary goal. You can ask Mr. Evola this. He may not say it word for word, but he'll give you some sort of form of this. It's been the same for the last 4 hours in Science Olympiad, the last 7, 8, 9 years. Confident leaders through science competition. It's been that way. It's always been that way. It's through having captains. It's through those pep talks. It's through the speeches. That's always been the goal of Science Olympiad. It's not to make you guys a bunch of science brainiacs, because as I'll say, when this is all said and done, no one actually cares about whether you can build a plane out of wood or what you know about glaciers. Like, what the heck, honestly. It's about those soft skills that you're developing, and that kind of takes a form in leadership. Now, I'll plug my own leadership program here to the students who are in it, but what I'm trying to do with this is actually making that an explicit thing that we do. Throughout the years, it's always been implicit. It's always been students kind of figured out along the way. Myself and Tim, we were captains. We kind of figured it out as we're captains what we're supposed to say, what we're supposed to do. But by making this an explicit thing, we're giving direct instruction, just like we give direct instruction on what the specs are for disease detectives or how to draw a road scholar map. We're now giving direct instruction on what leadership should look like. That's working towards achieving our primary goal, plain and simple. Secondary goals, that's when you get into the good science kids, winning competitions, community, fun. That makes sense, right? Secondary goals. How do we measure that? How do we achieve that? You look at scores. We do where we place in the competitions, where our alumni end up and how they feel about Science Olympiad. We've got some alumni in like really, really cool places. And if you want to talk about details about that, we can talk about it afterwards. But a lot of them look to Science Olympiad as like the starting point for their kind of explosion into science and into the workforce and into whatever they say. And so asking them how they feel about Science Olympiad, what worked, what didn't, and trying to constantly reform that. That's something we can always do. Team feedback, another go-to, another great one. And so that's just kind of want to reemphasize that that's the goal of Sierra Vista Science Olympiad. And so I'll bring us to conclusion. I will fade the music back in. You didn't realize it was still playing in the background, but it is. Into the wild. We're jumping into an adventure here. It's a bit scary, a bit daunting, but it's a bit cool. So homework for this week. Memorize a goal. I'll post the slides. You'll see it. You will be asked. I'm making it my goal to make sure every student in this program is asked the goal of Sierra Vista Science Olympiad at some point. It could be in front of other people. So prepare yourself for that. Make sure you have the answer ready to go. Secondarily, there will be some homework questions that will be posted shortly. I would ask you don't fill them out right now. Rather, wait 24, 48 hours and then fill them out. That kind of forces you to get back into the rethinking, right? And by doing that, it'll help you get more and more reinforced with these concepts. And then for students who are competing, 7th, 8th graders, even the 9th graders who are doing those attendance forms, when you make your goals for the next few days, I want to challenge you to spend at least 2 minutes. 2 minutes. It sounds like a long time. I promise it's not. Spend 2 minutes making the goal that you write down better. I'll be reading them in the background. I want to see what you guys say, what you guys think. But we want to make sure that those goals are reinforcing what you're learning here. And so consider that as you go about your attendance forms this week. That's all I got for week 1. So great seeing you guys. If you want to stick around, talk a little bit more, we absolutely can. Otherwise, I will see you either in a Zoom call soon or next week, and we'll jump into a new topic. Thank you, guys.